Hello my dorks, it's the Dork Author here, and welcome back to a brand new tier list video. Considering I'm a huge fan of Telltales The Walking Dead game, and considering I livestreamed both Season 1 and Season 2, I figured it would be about time for me to make a tier list of all of the notable characters of the game of Season 1 only. I will do a Season 2 if this video gets enough likes and support and whatnot if you want to see more. So how I'll be judging these characters, if you don't know how a tier list works, here's the quick rundown. You take a character you like, and you put them in tiers. For example, the Duck tier, which is a tier I've made up, is the worst of the worst tier. D tier is slightly better than Duck tier, C is better than D, B is better than C, A is better than B, and S is the best and better than A, and so on and so forth. It's a pretty simple concept to grasp. Anyways, let's begin. First off, we have Andy. Now, he is one of the main antagonists of Season 2, Episode 2, of Starved for Help. I'll probably get seasons and episode mixed up. What do I think of him as an antagonist? I actually think he's pretty good, all things considered. He's certainly got me tricked, but I did kind of predict that there was going to be something a little off. He definitely seemed a bit too friendly for my liking. But as a villain, I really like his turn. When everything goes dark, he becomes a lot more aggressive and angry, but at start he was always the more calm and collected out of the three family members of the St. John's. And I definitely really enjoyed him, and I love the fight at the end between him and Lee, where you can either kill him by kicking him into the electric fence, or you can be a total badass and just leave him to die with his crumbling farm. But all in all though, I think I'm going to put Andy into the B tier. I genuinely liked him as a villain. I don't think he's the best villain in this game, but I really do enjoy him for who he is. And I think he's pretty good for the most part. Up next we have the shitbird himself, Ben Paul. Yeah, that's his surname in case you're wondering. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, he's going in Duck tier. Well, no. A lot of people really shit on Ben, honestly. But I think he's okay enough. I'm gonna pop him in the C tier. You may be thinking, Doc, come on, that is way too high for Ben. But put yourself in Ben's situation. His family, his little sister, probably dead, he's separated. He's trying to get by, he's a teenager going through anxiety and stress. He messes up trying to keep everybody happy. He trades supplies to the bandits in order to get them from attacking the motor inn over and over. He does it to try and appease the group and make it so they aren't attacked anymore or are feeling better. And obviously he's got Lilly on his ass constantly, being rude and a dick to him. And obviously he deals with the stress of accidentally getting Catcher killed, and then leading Duck to also get killed, and having to deal with the aftermath of Kenny. Then of course him dying by either falling down the bell tower or getting impaled and mercy killed by Kenny. I think Ben is way too hated, to be honest. But I can see why people dislike him. He's kind of like a mess up that constantly screws everything up. But overall though, I think Ben is just fine. He's C tier. Up next we have the Mama, Brenda St. John. What do I think of her as a villain? Honestly, kind of underwhelming. I kind of expected more from Brenda. She really only did one thing, and that was really hold Catcher hostage while pointing a gun at Lee, and she was killed by Mark, who we'll get to later. I feel like she should have done more in the game. Obviously she's the one who sets up the big dinner and reveals that, the St. John's are cannibals, but I feel like we could have had a lot more with Brenda. I'm going to also put her in the C tier with Ben. Up next we have a character that honestly a lot of people may forget about, and that's Bree. Now, here's a funny thing about Bree. Did you know that she is based on a person? There was a contest that was being held around the time, I believe, of episode 4 being released. And if these people entered into that contest and won, one of them would appear as a survivor, they would die, and then they would come back. And the other people would appear as walkers. And the actress who auditioned got Bree. And obviously, as you know, she dies, becomes a walker, and cleavers her in the face, wrong weapon. Bree kind of contributed a little, but honestly for me, she's kind of forgettable as a character. I feel like also they could have done a little more with her. I'm going to pop her into the D tier, because honestly there is... Sorry, I'm doing this without a script. there really isn't anything too notable about her for me to put her any higher. Up next we have the fandom shipping the best girl, Carly. I really liked Carly. She's a badass with a pistol, always saves Lee when he needs it, and, occasionally flirts with him. But, honestly, between her and Doug, I kinda like Doug a little bit more. But I really enjoy Carly. I've seen other playthroughs of people picking Carly after I finished my playthrough, and I really did like her character, how she felt guilty over Duck's death. Maybe I'm just more of a Duck stan because he's a smart genius nerd like me, but overall I really enjoyed Carly. I'm still pissed off at Lilly for killing her, though, because I know she dies at the end, kind of the same way that Doug does. And I definitely feel like she could have been around more, but I feel like she was actually really well done. So Carly is going to be the first person I'm going to pop into the A tier. She would be S if she appeared more, but honestly, for what she did, she was really good. Up next we have Chet. Now a lot of people may forget who this guy is. He is the guy who is with Sean Green, that is Herschel Green's son, I believe, or stepson, either one of those, and he helps Lee and Clementine get out of the neighborhood and drives them to Herschel's family farm. And he's actually a determinate character. If you leave with Lee and Clementine at night, he will appear as a walker, and instead Sean, Lee and Clementine will be taken by a fellow police officer to Herschel Green's farm. Chet was kind to Clementine, but really he really didn't do anything more of notable. Like, if you keep him alive and we get to Herschel's farm in the daytime, he just disappears for the rest of the game. We don't see him after that. But for the sake of that, honestly, I think I'm going to put him at the bottom of D tier. It's not that I hate Chet, it's just there really isn't anything to him. Just besides appearing in like 2 or 3 scenes. Up next we have Krista. I really liked Krista. She was a no-nonsense, no-BS woman, but she had a kind heart. Literally, when Clementine was missing, she was the first person to say, "We're going after her, right?" to Lee. She definitely cared for Clementine, and as we later discover, she was also pregnant at the same time. I really enjoyed Krista being a no-nonsense, strong woman that isn't obnoxious, take note wokeness. But honestly, I just enjoyed having Krista around. And I'm kinda sad we didn't see more of her in Season 2. Like, I don't know where she is, she's just kinda gone. I hope she appears more. But for Krista, I'm gonna pop her into the top of the B tier. I wish we would have seen her more, honestly. I hope she's okay, and I hope we see her more in later seasons. Up next we have Clementine, and obviously S tier. Clementine is the heart of The Walking Dead. She is the reason why the series is still continuing. The game would not have worked if it wasn't for Clementine. She is amazing. We see her character develop from an innocent girl to a badass who can take down full-grown adults if she wants. We see her choose her choices in Season 2, and in Season 1 we see how our choices as Lee affects her character. We can keep her a little more innocent, or we could turn her into a complete badass who swears, or drinks, or smokes in Season 2. But honestly, I love the emotional ending between Lee and Clementine at the end of Episode 5. I just think that all the characters, all the Let's Players, everybody just kind of coordinates around Clementine. She is something we have to fight for. She is the drive that keeps the group going. When she goes missing, the entire story is about trying to find her. And the payoff of her character so far from what I'm seeing is amazing. And Clementine definitely deserves to be at the S tier. She's amazing. Up next we have Danny. Ooh boy, this guy's creepy. Literally, he's creepy. If you hear his dialogue, he talks about keeping Clementine as a little girl. She's he's gross. You are going in the Duck tier. You suck, Danny. He's also a deranged psychopath, and he wants to be cannibalized when Lee, has him at pitchfork point. Pitchfork point, I like that. Back on topic. He was just an insane deranged person who, honestly, I didn't really enjoy. I liked Andy better because he's more calm and collected, more, I guess, kind of little psychopathic. I'm trying to think the best comparison. He's just more planned. He knows what to expect. Danny's kind of like a deranged wolf on a chain that's trying to break free. He's crazy. That's pretty much the best way to describe him. He's crazy. And creepy. Nobody likes a diddler, Danny. Anyways, on to the next character in the tier list, Doug. My man Doug. Why do people hate you so much? Honestly, I see all the people always going for Carly. Why not pick Doug? He's the smart guy, he makes traps, he's pretty funny, he's awkward, he's cool. I'm putting him in the A tier with Carly. He deserves a lot more love, honestly. I just want to put ahead. Hold on, can I... There we go, put him ahead. I really feel like people should pick Doug more often though. I like his character being smart. He also has regrets and thinking, you know, because Carly saved him instead of, you know... Or sorry, Lee saved him instead of saving Carly. And he kind of thinks about that all the time, and honestly, I think they would have made a nice couple if both of them were alive at the same time. But I'm glad we got to see what we saw of Doug, and I'm sad to see that he also got killed, albeit accidentally, by Lilly. Stupid bitch, I hate you. Anyways, on to the next character, Duck, who's gotten a whole tier named after him. But if we're talking like bias aside, he's probably maybe a C or a D character. But for the sake of the memes, we're putting him in the Duck tier. He's an annoying character all the way through, but he's a meaningful character because he describes and he basically leads Kenny's journey. Kenny's whole purpose is being a family man to care for his wife Katja and obviously Duck. And when we see him bitten in Long Road Ahead, and seeing his eventual death at the end where either Lee or Kenny can kill him, or just leave him to turn, we see Kenny's emotional state, how he pretty much loses himself for a while, and he tries to redeem himself and, you know, live on in Duck's memory. And I think Duck is a pretty unique and very important character for the sake of bringing Kenny's character more forward and seeing him more developed. But overall though, for the sake of the memes and because he's annoying, he's getting his own tier named after him. He's in the Duck tier. Up next we have Glenn. Our boy Glenn. Too bad he didn't make it in the show. Met a guy with a baseball bat and got his head cracked in. But overall though, Glenn in the games only appeared in one episode of Season 1, Episode 1, and he vanished left for Atlanta because the game actually takes place in the comic canon. Did you know that Lee, when he was in the car with the sheriff at the beginning, or the police officer at the beginning, he was actually going to go to the same prison that Rick and the gang would end up at later? So let me guess, if Lee was taken there, he may have run across Rick and his gang, who knows. But overall though, Glenn, I feel like we should have had a lot more of him, but I can understand why they got rid of him because they needed to keep the continuity of the show alive. He was nice to Clem, which puts him in the C tier, but he's right at the bottom because we don't really see much of him. Up next is a character we equally don't see enough of, and that's Herschel Green, who kind of goes along the same path as Glenn, because like him, he has to retain his continuity of being in the comics. Also, if you look at Herschel's farm in the the game and in the comics, they are exactly the same, which proves the point that the game takes place in the comic universe. Pretty cool. Herschel was kind at first. He was a firm man. He had his own beliefs. He kind of turned on everybody when Sean died, which makes sense, that was his own kid. But also, I feel like Glenn, we didn't see him much. But I'm going to put him ahead of Bree and put him in the D tier, because he's Herschel Green, everybody knows who he is. We all remember him. Up next, we have Katja, that is Kenny's wife, who we'll get to next. Katja is a pretty cool character for the most part. I like her being a soft, motherly person. She just tries to think on the positive side, you know, when the whole world is grim, the dead are walking around. She's just trying to keep spirits up. However, we do see her struggling with this later. Sorry for the cut there, I was coughing. Not Duck tier 56, I have to close that. We see her struggle with the group always carrying guns. We see her slowly getting more and more upset. And, you know, eventually when Duck gets bitten, we see her subtly going through a mental breakdown, to the point where she can't handle it, and she kills herself in the woods, and Kenny is left alone with a dying son and a dead wife, and Kenny eventually has to kill Duck. Also, here's a dark thing you might not think about. If you don't kill Duck and you leave him to turn, the first person he's going to eat when he's awake is his mother. Yeah, I bet you're all regretting not killing Duck now if you haven't already. But Katja's character was pretty nice, caring. She complimented Clementine's name, which is pretty good. I'm also going to put her in the C tier, I think. I'm going to put her ahead of Brenda though, because I feel like we see more of Katja. Up next, we have Kenny. My man Kenny, one of my favourite characters. He's going in the S tier. I love Kenny because we see his character grow. He's a dynamic character. Every single choice, or nearly all the choices you make make Kenny's relationship with Lee change. If you're kind to Kenny and you look after his family, he will be your main man till the end. He will always have your back, he will always compliment you, he will always try to help you and Clem. Controversially, on the other side, if you do not side with Kenny, he will turn into an absolute asshat who will hate you, he will leave you instead of trying to help you, forcing you to help yourself, and overall will act cold and will even say that he will be leaving you and Clementine to fix the boat. I like Kenny's journey, and I like how you can play him completely differently, like how two Kennys can be completely different on two different playthroughs. I love the ending with him sacrificing, quote-unquote, himself to save Ben, proving that even though he holds a massive grudge for Ben, he mercy kills him instead of letting him get killed by the walkers. And he eventually escapes and arrives in Season 2. However, we will cover Season 2 Kenny more in a Season 2 tier list if you want that in the future. But Season 1 Kenny, I absolutely loved. I'm Team Kenny for life, he is an S tier. Up next we have Larry. He is the mother of Lilly, and an absolute douchebag all the way through. You can be completely nice to Larry all the way through. You can give him the food, you can look after Lilly, you can save Lilly, you can always side with her when it comes to leading the group, and he will always act like an asshole to Lee. People have chalked it up to him being racist, people say it's because he just wants to keep his daughter alive, but I think it's also because he knows the truth that Lee killed somebody before the apocalypse. But overall though, Larry, I kind of wish we saw more of him, and I kind of wish there was a way like he could regret his ways towards Lee and he would apologise, but unfortunately we didn't get that. However, I really like the mystery with Larry's death, because if you notice all the way in the meat locker, when Larry is trying to, like, you have to save him with Lilly or kill him with Kenny, you can see him breathe right before his head gets smashed in with a salt lick. The question is that Larry coming back as a walker, or is that him breathing a normal breath indicating that he's coming out of his heart attack? I don't think we ever got the answer to this theory, it's always been left up to interpretation. But if we're talking Larry's main character, he's alright enough for a villain. I'm going to pop him in the C tier. I mean, you can hate him or not, but he was interesting, you know, he had his motives and whatnot. He did save Lee once with the axe if you gave him the axe instead of giving it Mark. But overall though, Larry, he's not one of my favourite characters. Up next, we have Lee. Of course Lee's in the S tier, I mean, where else would he be? The main character of Season 1, we see this man go from a scared, convicted criminal to an absolute hero willing to protect Clementine even to his dying breath. We see him go and turn into an absolute badass, always leading the group, always being kind but strict where he needed to be. We see his journey, we can take him down a lighter path or we can make him more aggressive. He is the dynamic character in The Walking Dead besides Kenny. We love Lee, we love seeing his journey, and that ending with him dying with Clementine and having to make Clementine do the impossible choice of killing him or leaving him to turn, that got everybody's hearts pumping and everybody's tears working. I'm telling you man, Dave Fennoy, the actor who plays Lee, did an absolutely phenomenal job voicing him. All of his lines are expertly delivered. I love his interactions and care of Clementine, how he helps her become the character we know her to be, how eventually she will take on his legacy. And I think every single Walking Dead fan loves Lee. Regardless, people can have mixed opinions on Kenny or Lilly, but I think the whole community really agrees that Lee is one of the best characters. And in my opinion, he's rightfully deserving of being in the S tier. Lee, you are a legend. Anyways, up next we have Lilly. Now she is the daughter of Larry and an absolute asshat, but I liked her as little as a villain. She's a very understandable character. You know, she freaks out when people get annoyed at her for rationing food, but it kinda makes sense. You know, she's always focusing on the group's survival, but, you know, being an asshole about it, you know, always jumping to conclusions, even if those conclusions are right, but kind of doing them in the wrong way. Lily's heart was always in the right place, kind of. She always was in a power struggle with Kenny, she hated him, but she kind of cared for the group's well-being. And she kind of liked Lee a little, like if he sided with Lee, she'll be kind of nice to him. She looked after Clementine, she gave him the ear clippers. Not ear clippers, sorry, the hair clippers, my bad, ear clippers. But yeah, she helps her. We see her go through her stress of losing her father in the meat locker in episode 2, my bad. And we see her just slowly get more and more anxious and more tense, gets angry, and pretty much in Neron has a mental breakdown inside of the RV when they leave the motor in. Then eventually we see her pull her gun on Carly, or pull her gun on Ben and kill Doug. So she takes the life that Lee saved, ultimately. And if you choose to actually bring her along with you despite having killed them, I learned that she will manipulate Lee and actually take the RV and completely leave them behind and just go away. And apparently she was originally the same Lilly in the Walking Dead book, Road to Woodbury, because I believe the achievement was originally Woodbury bound before it was eventually changed to what now to kind of separate the characters. But Lilly as a character, then later an antagonist, I kind of liked. I'm putting her in the B tier as well. She was pretty good for the most part. Up next we have the most underused character in my opinion, Mark. I don't really get the point of Mark's character, I mean he was just kind of there. But apparently according to the makers Telltale, there was actually a reason for having Mark in the group. His apparent role was to signify that time had passed in their universe, 3 months between episode 1 and episode 2. He didn't really do much though, he was just kind of there, helping Lee. He kind of tried to keep the peace between him and Larry. But of course his main point was being captured by the St. John's after he was injured, because they kind of set him up with the bandits and Andy had turned the fence on to try and get him killed. Eventually Brenda gets him, cuts off his legs and feeds his legs to our survivors. He crawls down with the line, "Don't eat dinner." Then eventually he dies and he actually helps Lee in his zombie form by eating Brenda. Also, fun fact, did you know that Mark's a psychic? All of his lines actually foreshadow events that happen in the Walking Dead game in episode 2. And I will play a short clip of all of his predictions right now.
Maybe you shouldn't have opened the door.
Yeah, except then I'd probably be food by now. Trust me, I have no regrets.
What the hell happened to your legs, man?
Don't eat dinner. He's a walking pile driver. I know I wouldn't want to be stuck in a room with him.
Guess what? You're stuck with me. I plan to be around long after you're gone. And if you turn, I'll be the one to put the axe through your skull.
You can see it's pretty interesting though, can't you? That Mark would actually predict the future. But overall as a character though, I'm going to pop him in the bottom of B tier. I think he was pretty good for the most part, but a little underutilized and I wish we could have seen him more. Up next is a character that I want to see more of, and that is Molly. I enjoyed Molly's character, she was kind of a badass. A little bit sarcastic at times, kind of a little uncaring. Accidentally knocked my microphone. But I wish we could see more of Molly. I like her with a little quirk of having her climbing axe, naming it Hilda. She's a badass when she wants to be. She helps Lee and the gang in Crawford when getting the engine for the boats. But she kind of disappears though. Just vanishes without a trace and I don't know where she is. She also has an interesting side story with being connected to Crawford because her sister was diabetic and she was sleeping with the doctor to try and get medication to treat her sister. Eventually it kind of turned south and she found his zombified corpse and just brutally destroyed it. But overall though, I think Molly's an alright character, but I really wish we could have seen more of her as well. And I do hope she returns. I don't know if she will or not, but I kind of do want to see more. I'm going to put Molly in the bottom of the A tier because I really enjoyed her when we had her around. She was a badass, she was really cool, but again, just wish there were more. Up next we have Omid, and oh my god, this picture they chose is perfect. Omid is A tier for me, top of A tier. I loved Omid, he was such a joy to have. He was the heart of the group during episode 3 and episode 4. He would always crack jokes and try to keep the gang up and about. And I loved his interactions with Lee when he was cutting the tanker. He was just kind of freaking out. I kind of enjoyed his little flop and fail when he hurt his knee. And he definitely does really care for Clementine and the group. He's one of the people with Krista that really goes to find Clementine when Lee dies. He's with her until, unfortunately, his passing in episode 1 of season 2. And I loved Omid when we had him. He was really funny. He was serious when it needed to be. He cared for Krista and her unborn baby. And he was just an absolute joy, ultimately. I loved Omid having him around. For me, he sits comfortably at the top of A tier. He's probably top 10 of my favourite characters in season 1. He's really good. Up next we have the teacher. I forget his name, but he's the teacher to Ben who he was stuck with in the woods in episode 2. He doesn't really play that much of a role. He just kind of wails and screams for you to chop his leg off. If you chop his leg off, he'll come back as a walker in the motor inn, and he tries to eat Katja. His death and, you know, him turning into a walker is important for one thing. That is how the group discovers that we're all infected, you know. No matter how you die, you come back as a walker unless you're shot in the head or the brain is removed. His death serves one purpose, which for me will also put him at the bottom of C tier, simply for the fact that he delivered... Well, actually no, I'm going to put him at the top of D tier, my bad. His death delivered a significant plot point that would stay true for the rest of the series. The group figured it out. So that's why I think he's a touch better than the other characters down here, because his death had a purpose. But overall, he didn't really do much in terms of the game. Up next, we have the sheriff who was also taking Lee to the prison. And also, he kind of goes into the D tier. I'm going to put him at the bottom of D tier because he didn't really do anything either. The only thing I guess he kind of did was he served the start. He took Lee to going to take him to the prison, and his car crash leads him to finding Clementine, which could also make him an A tier character because he drives the plot. But overall, if we're judging how much he does and, you know, him as an interesting character, there's really nothing there. He's kind of like a tutorial interaction guide, if anything. But I think I'm going to put him in the D tier simply for the fact that he doesn't do anything notable. There he goes. Up next we have Sean Green. He is the son of Herschel Green. I'm going to put him at the bottom of C tier. He's a very kind person, looking after Clementine and whatnot, and for the very short time we had him alive, which was literally before they got to the drugstore in episode 1, he was kind. He always cared. He tried to convince Herschel that things were actually pretty bad out there, you know. He helped save Clementine and Lee from Clementine's neighborhood and got them to the farm safely, leading them to find Kenny and his family. And I kind of wish we saw a little more, but also, like Glenn and Herschel, the reason why he dies and, you know, is gotten rid of so quickly is because he's a comic character. He's also dead in the comics, which provides the reason that the comics take place a little bit before the Walking Dead games do. I kind of liked Sean when we had him with us. Wish he did a little more, but it kind of makes sense why he did as little as he did. Overall, though, he's a C tier character. Sorry, cough. Up next, we have the Stranger. I actually rather enjoy the Stranger for the most part. I think he's a pretty good villain. I'm going to move Lilly in front of Andy. I think the Stranger is pretty good. He's kind of a background character. He's a mystery. He's the guy on the radio we're all thinking about. And I really enjoy the reveal that the guy who's the main villain, technically, of the whole episode and the series as general, is just a guy. He's not some supervillain or some deranged nutjob of a huge god complex. He's just a normal guy who's gone a little insane because of the death of his family. And he's kind of right for having that mindset. We did screw him over. If you remember, he's the guy who won the station wagon in the end of episode 2 where we steal the food. And we kind of screwed his family out of it. And so he basically tries to kill Lee by talking him to death. Because Lee was bitten by the walkers, he was dying, of course, from that and blood loss and other stuff. And the Stranger was basically just talking Lee to death. And you can either kill the Stranger by choking him to death, or Clementine can, I believe, have her first human kill by shooting him in the back of the head and killing him. The Stranger serves a very interesting purpose for the game, and I'm very glad that they did what he did, and he wasn't some kind of insane super being. He was just a normal guy. I feel like that was just chilling. It was a whole huge reveal. We thought this guy was going to be like Negan or the Governor, someone huge, but he was just a normal guy. I'm going to put him at the top of B tier, above of Krista. I like Krista as well, but I think the Stranger's impact has a huge impact on the story. He's the mystery guy. All the mysteries lead to him. And I think the reveal was actually really good. Up next we have Travis, who was the classmate to Ben. You can also, I think, save Travis, but this guy down here will get eaten as well. But Travis also didn't really do much. He just kind of got eaten in my run. But apparently what happens is he gets shot when he tries to grab Kenny's rifle. He bleeds out and he also becomes a walker trying to eat Katja. And they still learn the truth of if you die no matter what except removing the brain or getting it destroyed, you will come back as a walker. So his death also served some purpose for the game, which is why I'm going to put him slightly below the teacher at D tier. Up next we have Vernon. I'm going to put him in the Duck tier. I like Vernon as a villain, but my god, he's an absolute arsehole if you think about it. he kind of tricks the whole group. He plays them like a fiddle. He comes in, tries to act kind and strong, but in the end he's an absolute snake. That's what he is. He screws over Clementine, Kenny, Lee and all the others by taking the boat, leaving them all to die while leaving a sad apology note. He offers to take Clementine away from Lee because he thinks that Lee isn't suitable for taking care of her, and he tries to justify that babying Clementine would be the best way to keep her safe, which is wrong. Lee exposing Clementine to the world, teaching her to shoot, and getting her in some dangerous missions really helped her become a stronger character. So if Vernon was the owner / guardian of Clementine, he would basically kind of screw her over and she would die, because he was not a good parent. I also believe we find out later that he actually is dead. Vernon dies. What happens is, in the 400 Days DLC, one of Vernon's lackeys or friends, part of the cancer patient group, explains that Vernon got jumped and the boat was taken or something. So he's dead. He's an absolute snake. He was interesting enough, but overall, considering what he did to the group, how he screwed Clementine and all the others over, he sits comfortably into the duck tier. He's an absolute jerk face, let's be honest. Anyways, this is the end of The Walking Dead Season 1 Game Tier List by Telltale. If you enjoyed the tier list and you would like to see me do a few more, maybe cover Season 2, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, hit the bell so you're always up to date with my latest videos, and obviously comment down below, what did you think of this tier list and what would you change? Help me get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of 2022, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, my dogs.